Hello and welcome to the Central Television. I am Lekan Onabanjo. The top stories at this hour. Government promises to rebuild Majia town following Jigawa tanker blast as Nigeria's Safety Investigation Bureau begins probe. World Bank says 129 million Nigerians living in poverty. Kenya President William Ruto nominates Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki as Gachagwa's replacement. Details to come your way shortly. Let's begin in Jigawa State, northern Nigeria, where following the tragic petrol tanker explosion in Majia, Jigawa State, which claimed over 150 lives, the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has dispatched a team of experts to investigate the incident. In a statement, NSIB's Director of Public Affairs, Bimbo Oladeji, said the team will assess the causes of the crash and explosion with the goal of preventing future occurrences. The explosion occurred after a tanker en route from Kano to Yobe State crashed and spilled its content, which ignited when residents attempted to scoop it. NSIB urged the public to avoid gathering at accident scenes, citing the dangers of such actions. Further updates will follow as investigations proceed. Meanwhile, the federal government has pledged support to Jigawa State in rebuilding Majia town following a devastating fuel tanker explosion that claimed 153 lives. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, made this promise on Thursday during a condolence visit. Akume conveyed President Bola Tinubu's deep sorrow over the incident, noting that the president has ordered a thorough investigation and directed federal agencies to assist in rebuilding and supporting affected families. Kwara State Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, part of the delegation, urged citizens to avoid scooping fuel during accidents. Meanwhile, Federal Road Safety Corps Marshal Shehu Mohammed confirmed an ongoing investigation and promised enhanced measures to prevent future road accidents. Let's now bring you to the southwest. The Lagos State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, has alerted residents and property owners at the Ogun River banks to be ready to relocate to higher grounds as the Ogun River Basin Development Authority commences staggered release of water from Onyo Dam. The commissioner dropped the hint while addressing the media in his office at Alausa Secretariat, Ikeja, the state capital. We'll bring you more details in our subsequent bulletins. Let's move on now to security matters, where the Ministry of Defense will soon establish a joint military command center in the northwest, codenamed Operation Fasanyama. The Minister of Defense, Abubakar Badaru, disclosed this as a part of ongoing efforts by the federal government to address the security challenges confronting the region. The minister made this known when he visited the Kaduna State Governor, Senator Obasani, at the Sir Kashim Ibrahim Government House as part of his working tour of the Northwest Zone. The visit was aimed at finalizing preparations for the official launch of Operation Fasanyama, a joint military theater command established by the Defense Headquarters to tackle insecurity in the zone. In the meantime, the Defense Headquarters has reported the elimination of 96 terrorists and the arrest of 227 suspects during operations in northern Nigeria. Among those arrested is Usman Mesaje, a terrorist commander linked to high-profile leader Kachala Boka. Major General Buba Edward, Director of Defense Media Operations, stated on Friday that Mesaje has been providing valuable intelligence to assist further military efforts. Troops also rescued 157 kidnapped hostages. In the South-South, 45 suspected oil thieves were arrested and crude oil worth over 712 million naira was recovered. Troops also seized a range of weapons, ammunition and vehicles and dismantled illegal refining sites across the region. Still on security, the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, has revealed that many illicit weapons circulating in Nigeria originally belonged to the federal government. Speaking during an arms destruction exercise by the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons at Muhammadu Buhari Cantonment, Abuja, Ribadu blamed corrupt security personnel for allowing these weapons to fall into the hands of terrorists, bandits, and other non-state actors. It condemned the actions of those within the security agencies who facilitate the distribution of arms and assured that the government is committed to enhancing the country's security and preventing further illegal weapon proliferation. And now to discuss this, we are joined by a security analyst and executive director, Elixir Trust Foundation, Emmanuel Ikule. Emmanuel Ikule, it's nice to have you around on the news.
Same here, and thanks for the opportunity too.
So tell us, are you surprised by this latest revelation about Nigeria's security agents engaging in illicit arms trade?
For me, it's actually not surprising. There have been several reports in the past concerning some persons or security officers or law enforcement officers giving out arms to criminals in the past, which some were used for armed robbery and stuff for money. Most of these issues, why we keep having recurring issues with this type of crimes keep occurring over and over again, is because of absence of check. There's a saying that an unexamined life is not worth living. So if you really want to make a change, if you really want to move towards addressing concerns like this and avoid these issues coming out, it's not new. So it's sounding as if it's new, but it's something that has been there. The only issue is nothing has been done about it. We're only hoping that after his comments, something can then be done about people that have criminalized even the force and have criminalized handling of weapons too.
Also, aside the lack of due diligence when it comes to security issues, are there other causes that we may need to look at? People have talked about probably infiltration within the ranks of the Nigerian army or security apparatus. Some have talked about internal sabotage of the war against terrorism. Others have talked about poor remuneration. Would you also tie this situation to these variables?
Charity begins at home. So for a nation that have been affected and have direct implication on its citizens for a number of years, the Nigerian military have been able to go outside and address situations far worse than this. So for me, it has always been not that they cannot, it has always been the permission to and the willingness of those in leadership to actually push towards addressing this. So for the military, I think they are the only sector, or should I say the only agency, which actually their budgetary allocation is not tempered with. Whatever they submit is actually what is being given to them over the years. That means there shouldn't be an excuse why they cannot be able to carry out their duty. That is one. Secondly, we are looking at a situation where for the past how many years there have been no audit of allocations given to the military. If you want to actually curb corruption and deal with ills inherent in the society, especially as with the alarming rate at which people are dying because of this, there should be audits of those that have occupied offices. There are budgetary allocations in trillions, in billions yearly. Each year, before you give somebody fresh money, you audit that which was given before. What was the money used for? If you are complaining every time that you don't have sufficient weapons or armory, what happened? The budget you asked for was given to you. So what is the excuse? There went a series of years, there's no change. We keep hearing reports that they attacked in some particular place and they were not prepared, or armories along the line, they were not sufficient. But that is what you requested for. And if it was provided, then there shouldn't be any excuse in the first place. Secondly, if we need maybe improved weaponry and we don't have that capacity, it's allowed for synergy. We can as well also reach out to develop countries with better experience in handling certain ammunition to come and actually build our capacities allowed for us to also grow in handling that. But if all the time we make those budgetary allocations is being given to us and then we complain that it's not enough, I don't think it's good enough.
Okay,
Another
so
thing,
yeah, like I just needed to come in here because, you know, some time back there were reports of illicit weapons and motorcycles being smuggled into Nigeria through the borders, allegedly aided by government security personnel. Earlier on, you said that you actually support the security architecture in Nigeria to deal with criminal activities in the country. But now you've also mentioned the lack of account audits, the lack of monitoring, the lack of regulatory or oversight functions. So if we're seeing this lackadaisical attitude on the part of the handlers of this of security in the country, how well can we then trust them to deal with the issue around insecurity in the country?
yes, it's actually a worrying situation. But before I go to that, it's actually the responsibility of the army to actually address issues of porous borders and all that. It's their responsibility to prevent external invasion of the country or issues of internal aggregation of certain persons or groups. So if it's the responsibility to block our borders, then why should they be complaining of each porous borders? Because that is their primary responsibility. But unfortunately, in the last administration and currently, we have seen the military leave their primary responsibility of doing that to come and perform the roles of the policing role, which shouldn't be so. And we keep complaining of porous border. If they can go back to their original duty of their primary assignment, I believe to an extent, the issues we have will only be issues within that we are capable of dealing with. But as long as you are allowing the borders, people can come in and go as they want. These issues will continue to happen. And what I also know is for ammunitions, every ammunitions that they are being produced, they have maybe serial numbers or numbers that can help you track where it's being produced from and how it also enters your country. If it's being produced from Turkey or wherever, you can also track who produced this and it was sold to who. That can as well help in addressing these issues within. And then issues where constantly people in the past have been able to use these guns to give out.
Yeah.
And even when you discover these persons that have been found wanting, you have not been you have not been putting these people to account.
Okay.
So as long as erring officers are not being punished, these issues will continue over and over again.
So basically,
our military.
Emmanuel, basically the answers are there, the solutions are there, but then remains the government, of course, to take a cue to deal with these issues. Let's just peg the conversation there. Emmanuel Dekwele, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll go on a very short break on the news. When we return, we'll give you more details now as regards the Ogun River flooding story I shared with you earlier, even as Lagos has cautioned residents to move to higher grounds by the time or before the Oyo Dam release is done. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Earlier on the news, I told you that the Lagos State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, alerted residents and property owners at the Ogun River banks to be ready to relocate to higher grounds as the Ogun Osun River Basin Development Authority commences staggered release of water from Oyo Dam. The commissioner dropped the hint while addressing the media in his office at Alausa Secretariat in Ikeja, the state capital. News Central's Bettina Anmili reports.
As a proactive measure against flood in Lagos, residents and more importantly, those living along Ogun River banks have been urged to relocate to higher grounds as the Ogun Osun River Basin Development Authority, ORBDA, plans to release water from Oyo Dam any moment from now. This comes as the State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, says this appeal becomes necessary, stating that the water release will help to maintain the sanctity of the dam and its socio-economic implications for Lagos State.
The dam is equipped with 4 radial gates capable of releasing up to 2,271 cubic meters per second during peak periods. However, current releases are measured at 208 cubic meters per second, with only 2 gates open at 12% capacity each, ensuring control and steady discharge.
Floods are not uncommon in northern Nigeria. However, Maiduguri saw its worst flood in 30 years in the month of September after the Alo Dam breached its banks. The heavy surge of water buried half the state capital, damaging buildings and infrastructure. But the unfortunate incident could have been avoided.
Basically, we're talking about saving lives. Saving lives. Even if it's just one life, let alone in the case of these communities, we could be talking of hundreds, maybe even thousands of lives. By 2023, the pollution that we all agreed that we're going to reduce, it had never been so high in the history of humanity. So yes, there's a lot of aberrations. You can call it corruptions, you can call it nonchalance, but the reality is that the decision makers are not appreciating the reality of the situation of making a decision that is not implemented well or not making the right decision at all.
There has to be approaches to waste management, approaches to flood risk mapping, so that and dam management. Now, in dam management, one of the issues we have is in budgeting for dams because they are huge infrastructure. Approaches to constructing roads in such a way that the roads can plug some of the water, when it floods heavily, in ways that it can be channeled back to the Atlantic. In a state like Lagos that is prone to flooding, such approaches can be done.
While the Lagos state government says it fully recognizes the challenges faced by residents of the affected communities, which include Kara, Mile 12, Agility, Ikosiketu, Owode Ajegunle and Odo-Ogun as reported, the commissioner has assured of constant close monitoring of the situation and collaboration with relevant agencies to address humanitarian concerns, particularly for vulnerable groups like women, children, the elderly, and people living with disabilities, among others. In Lagos, for News Central, I'm Bettina Nwili.
Now I'll tell you that the World Bank has released the Nigeria Development Update Report, stating that over 129 million Nigerians are currently trapped in poverty. It released the report in Abuja as headline inflation rises, forcing millions of Nigerians into hunger. According to the global financial body, the over 129 million Nigerians represented a sharp rise from 40.1% in 2018 to 56% in 2024. Since 2018, the share of Nigerians living below the national poverty line is estimated to have risen sharply from 40.1% to 56.0%. According to the report, there was an increase from 115 million in 2023 to 129 million in 2024, which means that 14 million Nigerians have become poorer this year. The Washington-based bank attributed this surge to inflation, poor economic management, and external shocks. Now, Nigeria's former presidents Olusegun Obasanjo and Goodluck Jonathan, alongside other leaders, joined senior advocate of Nigeria, Mike Ozekome, as he celebrated his 67th birthday in grand style at the federal capital, Abuja. News Central's Joshua Marai has the details.
Former presidents, traditional rulers and other dignitaries all converge on Nigeria's capital as popular senior advocate of Nigeria, Professor Mike Ozekome, celebrated his 67th birthday alongside the presentation of his 50 books. Dignitaries and well-wishers present at the event delivered their goodwill messages to the celebrant.
Mike is a person who advocates thorough or complete political or social change with conviction, courage, and integrity.
I use the occasion to urge him not to relent in your efforts and contribution in building a better society.
From all of us here as Nigerians, we say to the judiciary, stand up and give us justice.
During his remarks, Nigeria's former President Goodluck Jonathan expressed worry at the recent court judgment intervening in the internal matters of political parties. He says that Supreme Court has gotten it wrong in granting legitimacy to the suspension or expulsion of national party leaders by their ward chairmen.
For PDP, exactly, of course, Baba knows, in the constitution of PDP, if you're a national officer, even your state cannot discipline you. Not to talk about a ward officers that are not even members of NEC, the National Executive Council. And we are saying that a ward chairman of a party can suspend and expel a national chairman of a political party. I'm pleading with the Supreme Court to review their judgment. Because that judgment has turned the cone upside down. And the political process, the democracy is wobbling.
I just want to thank you for the comment you made about political judgment. And you said I wouldn't say anything. Yes, because there's much to say and there's not yet time for it.
The highlight of the event was the cutting of the birthday cake by the celebrant and the launching of 50 books authored by him. Professor Zekome expressed gratitude to everyone in attendance. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Away from that to election matters, Nigeria's electoral body, the Independent National Electoral Commission, has fixed Saturday, November 8, 2025, for the off-cycle Anambra State governorship poll. The electoral body, while meeting with heads of political parties as part of its fourth regular consultative meeting, also informed those present of the preparation for the upcoming Ondo State governorship election slated for November 16 this year. Amadine Uyi reports.
It was the fourth regular consultative meeting with political parties and Nigeria's electoral body. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission gave representatives of political parties present an update on preparations for the upcoming Ondo State governorship poll.
With just 29 days or 4 weeks to the Ondo State governorship election, today's meeting is no exception. Only 2 days ago, the Commission presented the register of voters to political parties in our state office in Akure. With this development, we have successfully accomplished 10 out of 13 activities listed in the timetable and schedule of activities for the election. The 3 remaining activities are the publication of the notice of poll, the last day of campaign, and election day.
He also informed them that the electoral body has set a date for the Anambra State governorship election, which has been slated for November 8 next year.
The Commission has approved that the 2025 Anambra State governorship election will hold on Saturday, 8th November 2025. In compliance with the mandatory requirement of 360 days, the formal notice for the election will be published on the 13th of November 2024. Party primaries will be held from 20th March 2025 to 10th April 2025. The candidate nomination portal will open at 9 a.m. on 18th April 2025 and close at 6 p.m. on 12th May 2025.
The chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council urged the electoral body to play its role as an electoral umpire without bias, improving the process.
Nigerians expect INEC to improve on the Saturday, 16 November 2024 Ondo State governorship election. Council urges stakeholders in the electoral process to also join in voters' education, sensitization, and mobilization to ensure free, fair, credible, transparent, inclusive, and peaceful election that will meet international standards. IPAC will lead from the front in voters' mobilization as a major stakeholder and urge political parties and their candidates to imbibe issue-based campaign and eschew politics of bitterness.
Nigeria's electoral body urged political parties to help mobilize registered voters to come out en masse and collect their permanent voters card ahead of the upcoming polls. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Coming up on the news, Kenya's President William Ruto nominates Interior Minister as replacement for impeached Deputy President. We'll bring you more details when we return. So stay with us. We now head to East Africa, where Kenyan President William Ruto has nominated Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki as Deputy President following the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. The announcement was made by the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula during a special parliamentary session on Friday. Kindiki emerged as a top contender after Gachagua's ousting by the Senate on Thursday. Wetangula informed the House of Ruto's decision to fill the vacancy, noting that Parliament now has 60 days to vote on the nomination. Ruto had a 14-day window to submit a nominee after the impeachment, and Kindiki is set to step into the role pending parliamentary approval.
Today morning, I have received a message from His Excellency the President regarding the nomination of Professor Kithure Kindiki, EGH, to fill the vacancy which has occurred in the office of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya following the impeachment of the previous office holder.
Meanwhile, Nairobi residents lament what they call the unfair process which ousted Kenya's deputy president. In an unprecedented move, Gachagua was impeached by the members of parliament. His downfall is said to be the culmination of a bitter falling out with President William Ruto, who helped win a 2022 election by rallying support from the vote-rich Mount Kenya region. Though he denied all charges, Gachagua was found guilty on charges of gross violation of the Constitution, including threatening judges and practicing ethnically divisive politics, but cleared of others, including corruption and money laundering. The process has created a mood of political uncertainty in a country regarded as a stable democracy in the volatile East African region.
Yeah, my thoughts on the impeachment is very disappointing because we did not expect the deputy president to be impeached, and the government is not doing good. So as citizens or Kenyans, we are very jittery about the impeachment. So this regime is very disappointing. So next season or next election, we'll vote them out because the parliament or the legislature is being used by the executive to know the deputy president. So it was unfair.
Mi kuishi hiyo impeachment ya Gachagua sifurahi kwa roho, ni uchungu kwa sababu Gachagua kama mtu wetu ni mtetezi, ametutetea kama sisi wananchi wa chini. Hataki tulie tena, tumelia ya kutosha. Kwa hivyo sisi kwetu kama wana Saudi B ama wamama, tungependelea sana Gachagua baki, ni mtetezi wa wanyonge, sababu akitoka kule mwetena atakuja kututetea.
Outside Africa, we tell you that Palestinian militant group Hamas has confirmed that its leader Yahya Sinwar had been killed by the Israeli military in Gaza. This was confirmed in a recorded video statement by a Qatar-based Hamas official, Khalil al-Haya. Hamas's announcement comes a day after Israel announced its death.
القائد الكبير الأخ المجاهد الشهيد يحيى السنوار أبو إبراهيم رئيس المكتب السياسي لحركة المقاومة الإسلامية حماس وقائد معركة طوفان الأقصى.
In the meantime, Israel has taken responsibility for the killing of Hamas's leader Yahya Sinwar. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday that the killing of Hamas chief Sinwar is the beginning of the end of the war in Gaza. Gazans are hopeful that the war would come to an end now Sinwar was widely believed to be the elusive mastermind of the unprecedented attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, that triggered a relentless Israeli military campaign in Gaza.
Sinwar is dead. He was killed in Rafah by the brave soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces. While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end. To the people of Gaza, I have a simple message. This war can end tomorrow. It can end if Hamas lays down its arms and returns our hostages.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined by our chief international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, nice to have you join us. And that was the Prime Minister of Israel talking there, saying it is not the end, it's the beginning of the end. What more do we need to know as regards to the death of Sinwar to start with?
Well, a video has been released by the IDF that purports to show the moment that Sinwar was discovered. Now, IDF soldiers and trainee soldiers, notably, were on patrol in Rafah, where they came across Sinwar with some of his colleagues. Now, he ran into a building, up into a first floor of a building. Now, the building was pretty wrecked because it is in a part of Rafah that has had a lot of buildings that were damaged. He's seen sitting in a chair on the first floor with what looks like his right hand is missing, his face is covered, and he throws a stick at the drone. Now, drone went in after him, and that's what was filming him. He throws a stick at the drone and was killed shortly after. Now, the New York Post on its cover today had a picture of his lifeless body there in the rubble. And of course, Hamas themselves have confirmed his death. Now, it's thought he was found with weapons, and he had money on his well, around 40,000 shekels, which is around $10,000.
So what has been the reaction now to his death and the statement by the Israeli Prime Minister?
Well, Iran, which backs Hamas in this axis of resistance, and of course has had its own leaders killed in recent weeks, including Ismail Haniyeh, they have said and looked at the footage of Sinwar's final moments, that I described, and they have said it presents him as a heroic figure and disproves the repeated Israeli claims that he was hiding in tunnels and using hostages as human shields. Hamas have said that, Joe Biden has said that the killing of the Hamas leader is a moment of justice. He's in Germany at the moment, where he's been meeting with the German Chancellor along with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and France's Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron as well. Now, a senior Hamas official has also come out and said that the group cannot be eliminated, that you can kill its leaders, but the group will go on. And that seems to be quite a sort of common thread amongst people on the ground in Palestine that reporters have been speaking to, that have said, essentially you can cut off the head of the snake, but the snake still remains. And so, yes, perhaps you have killed Yahya Sinwar and the leader of Hamas is dead, but the resistance still continues, that Hamas still continues. And actually, this may embolden Hamas further as we get to this stage in the war. So it's not the end of the war. Perhaps it is the beginning of the war, but it is most certainly, perhaps it's the beginning of the end of the war, but it is most certainly a turning point in the war.
Okay, so if you say it's a turning point, how soon do we expect these to fizzle out, especially as we see a rise in casualties and the fact that a couple of these leaders of these terrorists are being tactically eliminated?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We are seeing a daily rise in the number of casualties, and like we said, we would like to think that this is the beginning of the end. And a lot of people looked at Yahya Sinwar as someone who was a stumbling block when it came to negotiations, and that's negotiations about the end of the war and about the release of hostages. And some people will say that now that he has been removed, he has been eliminated, perhaps those negotiations can go further, but it might go in the opposite direction. And like I said, that this might actually just embolden Hamas even further. And Yahya Sinwar had, he was really good at sort of understanding Israel. He spent a lot of time imprisoned in Israel. He knew how to speak Hebrew, and he sort of knew, he schooled himself on Israel, on the Israeli people, on the IDF, how to sort of earn their trust. And he was supposed to be the mastermind of the October 7th attack. And one of the reasons why that attack could even happen is because, along with Hamas, he kind of lulled Israel into a false sense of security and then attacked them in this way. That's something that he could have taught his Hamas fighters. And yes, he will be replaced as a leader, potentially with his brother. It could be said Mohammed Sinwar could be the next leader of Hamas, but he might have the same kind of thoughts that Yahya Sinwar did, could lead in the same way. Israel thought they would only perhaps be in this war for 3 months. It's been over a year. And we are no closer to a ceasefire, no closer to the remaining hostages being released. So, yes, it's a turning point in the war. I would like to say that we are closer to a ceasefire, but actually we aren't. And there hasn't been ceasefire negotiations or hostage release negotiations for at least the past month.
All right, thank you so much, Ivy Hagen, for that detailed analysis. We appreciate that. We'll go on a very short break on the news. When we return, we'll bring you business stories, one of which is the economic hardship in the country. Amidst that, the World Bank has said President Tinubu's reforms are yielding positive results. We'll bring you the details after this timeout. The Nigerian Economic Summit may have ended, but its latest gathering. Let's take you through business now. The World Bank has announced that Nigeria is starting to benefit from significant policy reforms implemented after the near fiscal crisis of 2020. The organization has encouraged the country to remain committed to these policies, predicting that the economy would or could become very vibrant within the next 10 to 15 years. On Business Edge, Dr. Samson Simon, Chief Economist at ARC Economics and Data Limited, shared his insights regarding the World Bank's recommendation for Nigeria to stick to its policies, emphasizing the potential for a robust economy in the future.
You don't ask somebody that is dying to wait 10 to 15 years. Nobody has 10 to 15 years. Maybe the elite have that kind of time. But sadly for Nigerians, we don't have 10 to 15 years to wait, enduring the suffering that all of us are suffering. I think the right thing that should have been done is the sequencing of these policies. We talk about subsidy removal. Subsidy is just a means to an end. The demand for subsidy is a derived demand. In the sense, you don't demand for subsidy for the sake of subsidy. You demand for subsidy because you need to lower pump price of fuel. So they're not mutually exclusive. You can still remove subsidy while at the same time bringing down the pump price of fuel. How? By ensuring local refining and by ensuring the domestic feedstock from the Nigerian fields. That would have gone a long way before even talking about subsidy removal. I think the problem we have is that there's a lot of buck passing.
In sports, the city of Lagos will play host to Nigeria's senior women's national team's highly anticipated international friendlies against Algeria on October 26 and 29, 2024. The friendly matches, which will serve as key build-up for the Super Falcons after their disappointing group stage exit at the Paris 2024 Olympics, will now feature a mix of both emerging local talents and seasoned international players. Interim coach Justin Madugu, supported by assistants Anne Chejine and Awad Bashir Makala, had scouted local talents during the recent Betsy Obaseki Cup in Benin, where Nasarawa Amazons emerged victorious. The final squad is expected to be announced by October 19, with the training camp opening on October 21 in Lagos. Let's now tell you that Arsenal's coach, Michael Arteta, has revealed that Captain Martin Odegaard is nearing a return to fitness after a lengthy injury layoff and could be fit to face title rivals Liverpool next week. The Norway midfielder has been sidelined with an ankle problem suffered on international duty early this month. Although Odegaard has not played for the Gunners since August 31, Arteta's side remain unbeaten in the Premier League and are just 1 point behind leaders Liverpool ahead of Saturday's game at Bournemouth. The Spaniard said Odegaard would not be ready for this weekend, but the situation will be reassessed ahead of next week's games against Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League and Liverpool. From football to tennis, four-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka of Japan has pulled out of next week's Pan Pacific Open in Tokyo on Friday because of a back injury. The former world number one has been sidelined since she retired from her last 16 match at the China Open against eventual champion Coco Gauff at the start of the month. She then pulled out of this week's Japan Open in Osaka. The 27-year-old was set to compete at the Pan Pacific Open as a wild card, but organizers said she would be absent because of a lower back injury. Osaka's appearance at the China Open was her first tournament under Patrick Mouratoglou, the Frenchman best known for being Serena Williams' long-time former coach. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, we look at our top stories again. Government has promised to rebuild Majia town following Jigawa tanker blast as Nigeria's Safety Investigation Bureau begins probe. World Bank has said 129 million Nigerians living in poverty. We also told you that Kenya President Ruto has nominated Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki as Gachagwa's replacement. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekan.